My next guests are LA-based digital content creators, comedians, writers, actors, but most importantly, they are stay-at-home dads. Kevin and Evan of The Dumb Dads and Dumb Dads podcast are relatable and hilarious. They take the everyday challenges that we have as parents. We often feel as though we're failing, and they make us feel as though they get it, and we're all just really doing our best. I'm thrilled to introduce Kevin and Evan of The Dumb Dads for a funny, relatable episode on Rachel Thexton Connects. It's exciting to welcome my next two guests. They call themselves the Dumb Dads. I don't think they're really that dumb at all, actually. They have a following of over 1 million, have appeared on top US and international media, and really are taking the stay-at-home dad game to a new level via humor, and I'm loving it. When I feel like I'm going to go nuts, I log on and suddenly my crazy level goes down a couple notches. So I'd love to welcome Kevin and Evan from The Dumb Dads. Welcome
Hi
to
there.
Rachel Thexton Connects.
Hello.
Thanks
You're
for having
wrong.
us.
I'm dumb. Trust me. Trust me.
Yeah.
So on all of your, just really quickly, on your website and social media presence, the dumb is silent.
Yeah.
So why is the dumb silent? What's that all about?
Well, the Dumb Dads came about, the name specifically came about from the idea of like the 90s, the 80s, all of the tropes of dads just being so dumb. And anything that involves the family unit, they're the workers, they're the dumb lug workers. And when it comes to parenting, boy, they can't even make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich without setting the kitchen on fire.
Yeah.
Don't know the teachers' names.
Yeah, they don't know the teacher's name,
all that stuff.
what school, and so we like took that name because Evan and I would talk about that. We'd make that joke all the time. We are actors, so we do audition for commercials, and we audition for, what are you auditioning for today? I'm a dumb dad, because that is still what happens in commercials today. It's just like, yeah, I'm a dumb dad in this. So that became like the name that we're just basically kind of pushing back against. So if you're going to be a dumb dad, just keep the dumb silent and, figure out stuff like, I don't know, your kid's name.
Well, I mean, it's funny because my husband is the primary, drop off pickup.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the working mom. So I suppose, he does produce the podcast and do a lot of work for the business, but he does take on more of the responsibilities on the everyday.
Mm-hmm.
So he's in that role, and he likes your content too. So it kind of goes both ways, right? The moms and the dads are kind of liking it, both sides.
Well, you find that as you become a parent and then you figure out when they're babies, you get a little bit of a handle on what your responsibilities are and how to do all these things you've never done before. And then right when you get a handle, and you make a bunch of mistakes along the way, tons of mistakes along the way.
Yeah.
And then once you feel like you got a handle on it, things change. They start being able to crawl around. Okay, that's a whole different thing now I have to maneuver that I've never done before. And over and over and over again, you feel like you're kind of constantly failing while still keeping your kid alive, making it to the next day. And so you often feel dumb. And so that's, again, that kind of goes, tying into what Kevin said, this part of it as well. I often feel really dumb all the time because I feel like I'm getting stuff wrong, even though I'm trying to be dialed in, trying to be as involved as I possibly can, communicating with my wife as much as possible, but still mistakes come in waves. And so we try our best to keep it silent, but often it's out loud.
Yeah, I guess the trope that we push back against is the dad who doesn't know anything because he's not involved.
Yeah.
The aspect of it that we embrace of being dumb is the aspect that all parents are dumb. When it's your first kid, it's your first time being a parent.
Yeah.
When it's your second kid, you think you know what you're doing because you did this before, but it's a different kid. So your approach is different and the kid is different. So you're always made to feel dumb as a parent, and we're just kind of that's the part we want to laugh about. We don't want to do this trope and then trigger people with weaponized misogyny and our weaponized incompetence and things like that. We want people to be like, hey, we all made that mistake too. At 3 a.m. or whatever.
3 a.m. My head's not on tight at that point.
Yeah, so that's the part we want to embrace.
Well, I think you're doing that effectively. I said to you in my first email that I felt like you were watching our lives and basing your content on it. And we always look at this, and it's funny. I drafted up a few kind of questions that I planned to ask you, and the day after, you had content related to my couple of my questions. I thought this is bizarre and kind of weird, but I guess that's parenting, right? Like I've got
Yeah.
we have a 4-year-old, a 6-year-old, a 10-year-old. So we're kind of in the middle of a few different places, as I'm sure you
Yeah.
can relate.
Yeah.
Sure.
And so, and I think we all face that. So do you think it's this relatability mixed with, I mean, you guys are hilarious, mixed with the humor that really has caught on and is bringing people to your platforms in such droves?
I think, and this was in full honesty, this was not necessarily that intentional in terms of how and what our content was going to be when it first came out. We first started our podcast, and that was more of just an agreement. Like we'd worked together for a number of years before, and always wanted to do something else together. And we thought like, okay, well, let's just sit down and talk about being dads. At least that's like something we can do together.
Yeah.
If we just commit to doing that once a week, we'll just have an honest conversation. We started when Kevin had his second. So it was like right when he had his second kid. It was like, we'll start from like, day one of like, all right, newborn, how do you feel? Like a zombie? Great. So that was all that. But when we started posting content online, that's when we really started getting feedback, especially from stay-at-home moms initially, because we were stay-at-home dads. Since all of our kids are born, we were stay-at-home dads. And we were talking about things that related to them, but we were talking about them in ways that one of the very few things that we at least agreed upon was like, let's not just spend all of our time on our podcast or like dunking on how annoying our kids are. Like that's an old joke as well. And like that's only so relatable for so long.
Yeah.
Let's talk more about like our experience. And we both, I think, are the most comfortable in like self-deprecating humor. Let's do it. Let's do that in terms of how we feel as dads. Like acknowledge a mistake, get better because of the mistake. And so that's sort of the through line, but let's write jokes about it because jokes are fun. And like that's what's the relatability I think that people have found us, and the reason they follow us and engage with us is like the idea that we are saying that we are involved with our actions, but we're kind of bringing, some lightness to it, some levity to it, because like tomorrow's a new day. You can try again tomorrow. Try to learn from your mistakes today. So we just like write the jokes around that sort of centralized idea. And I think we kind of found our way through that, listening to the comments, listening to the people that would repost us. And these guys are talking about how I feel seen. I feel, so we thought, oh, wow, this is okay. Didn't realize that was something that was so universal.
Yeah.
And so we kind of tapped into the more and more we tapped into that, thought, okay, whatever we produce, let's put it through like this filter first. As long as it passes through that filter, then we can kind of do whatever we want. But that's the relatability aspect of it. I think it's caught on so well.
Yeah. No, I've noticed that when people engage, no matter if they have, 100 followers or, 500,000, you tend to respond, or when you can, obviously your dads.
Yeah.
And I think people really appreciate that engagement level from who they see as, quite a high profile comic duo, content creators on another level, and you're still engaging and having conversations with everyday parents. And that means a lot to people, even a little retweet or thanks for that, and in a day when maybe a mom or a dad doesn't feel seen, or it's tough, it's exhausting, and you get that little response, and it's like, oh, that was cool. That was nice of them. These are cool guys. Little things that you wouldn't expect make a difference.
Yeah.
No, I hope so.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. So I wanted to ask you about, I bought a t-shirt from your merch store this week.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
It's blue. It's not pink. I just wanted to make that clear to start with. I said, I'm not buying a pink t-shirt. I'm not falling into that stereotype.
Blue is my daughter's favorite color. So
awesome.
Yeah.
Love it. So I wanted to ask you about your audience. A lot of Canadians, mix of Canadians and Americans. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, we have obviously the largest chunk is in America. I want to say it's probably 90% is in the States, but we have a good percentage that is Canadian. We have a good following in Australia,
Okay.
That's
Yeah.
probably third on the list, which we think is
Yes.
hilarious and amazing that it's
Well, it depends which app. Like one app, I think it's like
Yeah.
US, Canada, and then Australia, and there's another app that's US, Australia, Canada, which is wild. And we were actually on Today, Australia,
That's right.
last year,
Oh, very
which
cool.
was, yeah, it was very wild.
It was we filmed it live, talking to them live on their morning show. We were like in Santa Monica at their US based production studio.
Oh.
And they called us up and we're sitting there talking like live on their morning show. We're standing outside in like LA.
Sitting outside with a busy road with an earpiece, live, so you can't like take a minute. You have to. It was stressful, but yeah, it is crazy. Like I said, like when we started doing this and reaching out and making content, and then dads from the Midwest or moms from the Midwest or wherever would just like be like, I am going through this exact same thing. Thanks for talking about it. It was like, oh, that's very cool. Like Evan said, I was like, man, I thought that was just me. I kind of posted that. I was like, yeah, this one's more for me. And then the amount of people that resonated with you are like, oh, okay, we're all going through this. We're all figuring this out. These were on the early days. And then when you have like, not that I think they parent any different in Australia or Canada, but at the same time, they're just like same over here. You're like, oh, wow, cool. Like parenting really is just this universal thing of, like I said, you don't have the answers. I always like to joke that nobody's perfected parenting, because if they did, people would stop writing books. There's always a new parenting book every
no more blog posts.
weeks.
We're done. That's it. We figured it out.
So yeah, it's pretty crazy the reach. We have other countries as well, but those are definitely kind of the big ones.
Okay. And are you being recognized when you go out on the streets? And how is that for you and your families, if so?
Yes, we do get recognized.
Yeah.
And I also have to say our fans are pretty generous to us in our comment sections, and that goes meeting people in person as well. They're very kind. It does feel weird. I mean, I guess to a certain extent, if you grow your following large enough, it's bound to happen eventually if your face is out there.
Yeah.
It usually happens when we're like heavily, a hotbed of parents, let's say like the zoo or something like that, where there's like parents everywhere. Then usually somebody will kind of walk up and be like, hey, I appreciate you guys.
Yeah.
And that's usually the message, which is always very kind. Hey, I appreciate what you guys do. Love your content. I went to a soccer match at a pub this last weekend with my family and was watching, and this guy had DM'd us and said, hey, I know you're a big fan of Liverpool. There's this bar. I don't know if you're going to go watch the match, but if you're going to be there, I'll be in the area. And it kind of sparked me to think like, yeah, actually, I was thinking about going somewhere. I didn't really know where to go. So I ended up going, and the guy found me and was like, hey, man, I just wanted to say, like, I appreciate what you guys do for stay-at-home dads. I'm a stay-at-home dad. I just appreciate it. It makes me feel better about myself. And like, that was it. And he shook my hand, and I was like, man, I never expected like that kind of a reaction from people when realistically we're thinking like, man, we're screwing up a lot. Let's write jokes about it. That from that idea to a personal connection like that, where somebody really does come up and say hello and thank you for what you do. It's like, that's kind of a wild turn that I don't think we ever expected.
Yeah. You didn't expect how meaningful it would be.
Yeah.
No, I think there's still that stigma, and you guys have talked about it in some of your content associated with the stay-at-home dad. And I think that is long due to go. We'll talk about that in a minute, but first, I want to talk about your press conferences. So I own a PR business, so I work with Media Daily, and so I think that's part of why I find the press conference skits just the best. Like I'll watch the same one over and over. It's kind of pathetic. And the best thing is when you guys just walk away. You refuse to answer, because I always make fun of athletes. I mean, their media training is horrible. They answer nothing. It's all canned answers, and they walk away when they feel like it. So where'd you come up with this whole idea of the press conference? And because it's unique. I love it.
I play fantasy football with a bunch of my friends, and one year I did not make the playoffs, and I was so mad and annoyed, and I kept thinking about the things I did during the year that I screwed up. And so I sat in my kitchen and made like a fake press conference where I had people asking me about like the stupid trade I made and like, why did you drop this player and like all this stuff.
Oh.
And that was like 5 years ago, 6 years ago. And that was the only time I ever did anything like that. And, and I only posted it like in our group friends thing. And then as Kevin and I often do, are like writing together, thinking of new ideas, like what are new ways that we can present some of our content. I remembered that I had made that and thought, oh, I wonder if it'd be funny to do like if the day of parenting is the game, and then you had to answer about all your mistakes. And so maybe I'll try to figure that out. And that was pretty much it. That was the idea. It was just the idea that like if every day, because like in baseball, there's like 162 games and they have to do a press conference every day, every game.
Yeah.
Could you imagine if you had to do, I mean, as a parent, you sit down at the end of the day, you're exhausted, your kids are pissing you off, like all this stuff. And then they're like, why did you do this? Why did you do that? You'd be like, man, you would walk away from so many of them.
Oh yeah, no, I
That was the
wouldn't show
idea.
up.
It was just like, it'd be funny to hear from that person every day, like if you had to answer it every day. And that was pretty much it.
Is that
And
some of your most popular content on the social platforms? Would you
Yeah,
say?
that now and a bit that we've been doing parenting through time that Kevin first did.
Yeah.
Where it's like you take a bit.
Yeah, how parenting works throughout the generation.
Yeah.
So like, but it's always focused on the dad. So that's when we can lean into all of the tropes. So the 50s dad is just a monster who wants nothing to do with the child. And he keeps calling him the child and not by his name because he's probably not positive.
Yeah.
The 80s dad has a lot of heart, but he's just so abrasive and dumb as well. The 90s dad's never around. It's always just a note.
Because they're working.
Yeah, the first time I did it, it was really a slap in the face to 90s parents because of latchkey kids. And
I think the first time you just
guys
like
know that
go the
term?
door.
Latchkey kids?
What's that?
You guys know the term latchkey kids?
No, explain it. Explain it.
So the latchkey kids were the kids that came home from school and the parents were both at work or wherever. And so they had a key to the house. So they were always just kind of
Oh, that's me.
letting them in. You were a latchkey kid.
Yeah. Oh dear. Okay,
She's
go on.
like, oh, great. We informed you now. She's
Yeah.
learning this now.
Yeah, it's a latchkey kid. I was a latchkey kid too.
Yeah, same.
Okay.
You come home and it's like,
It was a lot of us. It was a lot of us who grew up in the 90s.
Yeah.
And it was fun. And so when I did that, like the first time I did it, I was like, yeah, I did a 50s dad. It was terrible. I did an 80s dad who was just like yelling at the 3-year-old because he's supposed to be in charge. And then the 90s dad, I just did a static shot of my door and then moved on to today's dad and the amount of people that resonated with of just like the absentee.
that was
90s
wild too.
parents.
It's so funny. It's like, sometimes you stumble across those things, like you post that and think like, oh, you're thinking like, it's kind of funny, right? Like the door, because they're not there. And that's like, the comment section explodes.
The comment
It's like,
section
this
explodes.
week's again, my parents came home from dinner and I was there for 5 hours by myself.
And
Yeah,
then
I
the
ate
today's-
Fudgios, that's just the way it was.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the today's parent is always a try hard.
Yeah.
Which is like what we are all struggling with because there's so much content online and so
Overthinking
many.
Yeah.
This is how you should be parenting, and overthinking your feelings, their feelings, and not really making a statement in the video. It's just kind of like, this is what we look like right now.
Yeah,
It's
it's kind of how
the
we
thing.
feel a lot of the time.
So those are our most popular. Those two are probably our most popular right now.
Latchkey kids. Okay, I'm gonna have to research the damage that does to someone. Anyway, we'll talk about that later, another time. So on that, we do kind of go, I don't know. I feel my husband and I talk about this. I feel like we go a bit far, like we kind of go too far on the other end of the pendulum versus the latchkey kid, right? We're trying to
Yes.
kind of make up for what we didn't have.
So a lot of
Yeah.
people say, yeah.
And for our kids are kind of a bit entitled and slightly bratty at times.
At times, of course.
But I want to talk about this because I don't know, are you guys noticing this? So Bluey, YouTube Kids content. The parents are always there. They never have any responsibilities, and they're always doing creative activities and jobs with the kids and crafts, taking
Yeah.
them out every hour of the day. And my kids are wondering, why aren't you like the Bluey dad and the YouTube kid parents? And it really pisses me off because that's not reality. But they're watching
Right.
it and they're thinking we're failing. So what are your thoughts on this? Because, the painting for 30 minutes and a trip to the library is not going to cut it anymore. We have to be like hourly activity, and it's got to be structured, and you've got to be free every minute. Are you seeing this trend? Or your kids giving you this feedback? What's the
That's a really funny and interesting point of view that you have. My kids also love Bluey. I don't think they hit us with that a lot, but Evan and I are also in a very privileged position that we recognize of both of our wives work from home
Mhm.
and we do social media from home. So I definitely feel for the parents that have to go to work. It's funny you say that.
Mhm.
There is an episode of Bluey that I remember the first time I saw it, I go, that's a weird choice for the writers. And it was Rug Island. It's in the first or second season. And the dad's like, I gotta go to work. And they're like, can't you stay and play? And he's like, no, sorry, bud, I gotta go to work. He's got his tie on, he's got his like his briefcase or whatever. And they're like, oh man, oh well. And they're like, well, let's play Rug Island. So the two kids decide to play Rug Island. And then the dad shows up, and I was like, wait, what? Did he not go to work? Like, I know this is a kid show about dogs living in a house,
Did he skip work?
but you just said you were going to work,
Yeah.
and then he doesn't go to work. And I remember thinking it's a weird choice for this show to just kind of
Oh.
like let your kids know, like I can dip on work whenever I want.
No,
It
the
is
wrong
funny.
message.
Yeah,
It's funny too, because as you said, like we're around a lot. Our wives work from home. We produce our content and write and edit from home all the time. So like we're around a lot. We're around more than my parents were when I was a kid because they had jobs that they were out of the home. Like I was
Yeah.
whatever you call like a latchkey kid. So like the expectations that we're setting, like sometimes I often think, because my wife's in like conference calls a lot. She's working with on her home computer, like her office home computer a lot. It's like, but they don't know what she's doing. It just looks like she's sitting at a computer and on the phone once in a while. And she's like, I'm on the phone. You guys got to keep it down. But they don't know. They don't think that like we have jobs or like we're just home a lot. So like
Right.
that's a different expectation that I think we're setting that I don't know how to I don't know how that will affect them in the future. They think like, what do you mean I have to go to work, like drive somewhere and work somewhere? Like
Yeah.
they're not going to understand what that is. So I will say this. When I was a kid, my mom used to tease me that I was Mr. Thrill a Minute. That's what she called me. Because like we would go do something and then I wonder, what are we doing now? So I don't know that it's this new expectation. I'm not sure. I think I just probably had, I was a hyper energetic kid and wanted to know like, what's the next fun thing we can do? What's the next fun thing we can do? Like,
Yeah.
whereas like nothing, we're going to go home and I'm going to lay down for a minute because I had a week.
And you're going to do a puzzle. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, she used to call me Mr. Thrill a Minute because I was always kind of like, what's next? Where can we go? Can we go do this? I always wanted to do the next fun thing. It was like
Thrill a Minute is such a better name than Annoying.
I love that Thrill a Minute. I have a
called
new
you
nickname
Mr.
for myself.
Thrill.
That would have done more damage to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. She kind of sugarcoats it.
So it's not a new phenomenon, perhaps. Maybe it's just
I don't know.
emphasized. I work from home too. And it's I always feel like badly because they're at my door. They're sliding things under my door and
Yeah.
banging. And I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, like I'm guilty. I'm not out there, doing things. It's not because I don't love you. It's because, we have to eat and, those
Yeah.
types of things.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it goes back to what you were saying before about maybe it's the latchkey thing and we're swinging the other side of the pendulum because we are overcompensating. Maybe we are, maybe we aren't. I do think we're all really hard on ourselves. But I also think our parents were like hard on themselves too. They just don't remember because it was a while ago. Because I just think, yeah, there are times when you like feel bad that you tell your kids like, I can't play with you right now. I have to do this thing. You go over here, and then they give you the puppy dog eyes,
Yeah,
and
it's
then
bad.
you're like sitting in that feeling for like the next hour, and then maybe you forget and you do work, and then when you come out, you're like, hey, bud, and you're like, maybe I can repair this, and they're like, bro, I moved on. Like,
Yeah, they're done with
the
it.
second your door closed, I forgot you were here. Like, so I do think there's a lot we put on ourselves that our kids are just like not internalizing as much. Some stuff, sure, but like I think there's other stuff of like the guilt we give ourselves. I think is just I think it's an overcompensating thing from our pasts. But I think we're a little too unfair on ourselves sometimes.
Yeah. No.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think that will resonate with a lot of people. The bedtime routine. So,
Pass.
Yeah.
pass. You can't pass. It's not a press
Next question.
conference.
Oh, we can get up and leave.
You could. Please don't.
We won't.
We won't.
Listen, I'll make it quick on the bedtime
we're happy to talk
routine.
about it.
Well, the bedtime routine is never quick, so let's make it long and drawn out.
Let's try to make it quick and see what happens.
Oh, good Lord. So I want to talk all day long, and then suddenly it's bedtime, and we say like a prayer. It's a song I used to say when I was a child. We read a book, and then I want to get out of there. Okay, I'm tired. But I love the bedtime routine. It's meaningful to me and I want to do it every day. But then my kids start like asking me questions about philosophy and like the
Yeah.
stars. And it's like, what? You never want to talk about this. And this is really annoying and weird.
Yeah.
So, how do you get through it? Who's better at it, mom or dad? Any tips?
It's so funny that you say that. That's another one of those things that I never knew that was a universal thing until my kids did it. And then we talked about it online and that went completely nuts, viral, like talking about the idea that your kid is like, how was school? Fine. What happened? I don't know. And then 9:15 rolls around and it's like, what happens if where do we go when we die? What are stars made of? Why is broccoli green? Why? And it's like, oh, what is happening? And my kids only want mom to read for the most part. Still, they both will be like, can mom read to me? Mom, can you read to me? Both of them want it. It's like, guys, I'm standing right here.
Don't feel bad about that. That's universal too. Yeah.
So that happens. I think my wife and I are equally decent at taking bedtime and just kind of understanding, like, some nights are longer than others. Some nights we go in there and they fall asleep right away. So the nights where they like won't stop talking to you and you're tired and you want to go to bed and you just want them, like, to a certain extent, sometimes you got to kind of remind them, like, all right, we got to make sure we get some sleep or we're not going to be, tomorrow's going to be really hard. We try to set that expectation a little bit, but at the same time, that's when they feel the most safe, the most comfortable, the most, vulnerable to be around you. And so
That's true.
I don't want to kind of try to remind myself that if I set the expectation that this is not the time for this, then maybe they won't understand when the right time for something like that is. So I do try to have those conversations when they happen, as much as I don't want to, because I just want to go to bed myself.
Yeah.
But,
you guys are deeper than I thought you were. I gotta admit. I don't mean that as an insult. I just mean, like you have a really smart, I've never thought of that perspective. And I'm a pretty deep thinker. So, okay.
So, so it's hard. And again, now introduce parent guilt, because I don't even want to be in here. Well, man, what does that say to me if I don't even want to be in here right now? But it also means that
you're an adult.
I'm an adult, tired person, and I want to go to bed.
Yeah. I too enjoy the conversation. Well, sometimes enjoy the conversations.
Sometimes they're not quite as thought provoking. It's just like, well, why do people fart?
Sometimes
I don't know. Can we go to bed?
Those are fun. I'll take those all day long.
Poo. Okay.
Yeah.
Literally last night, for instance, my daughter's having trouble falling asleep. Evan and I recorded our podcast last night, and when you left, my daughter's like in bed, still awake. So I went in there, I laid down with her for a little while. And she was like, what was the best year of your life? And I was like, here it comes. Here are these ridiculous questions. Because then I'm like, I don't know, that's a really good question. She's like, would you say it's 2016 and 2019? That was like the year you and your brother were born? Probably not.
We had a lot going on that year.
There's a lot of blowouts those years. So I don't know the year. But I was like, yeah. So I was like, I don't know, it's tough. But then she was like, she goes, what was the worst year of your life? And I was like, not going to tell you that.
Oh boy.
And she goes, oh, you know what? I just realized something. I go, what? She goes, the worst year of your life hasn't happened yet. Because both your parents are still alive.
Oh my goodness.
And I was like,
kids are so smart.
Yeah. Anything else?
Also, why do you assume it's going to happen in the same year?
Oh.
They love each other so much. They'll go 3 weeks apart. Like everybody wants.
She took you on an emotional roller coaster there.
She did. And
have you ever regretted going and laying down and spend some time with your daughter?
But I'm so used to like those conversations. I have gotten very good at like answering them to the best of my ability and then ripping that Band-Aid off. I'm just like, all right, you got to get some sleep, bud. And I hop up and they're like, no, Stan, I was like, can't do that. I love you so much. You're my whole world. I'll see you. Bye. And like close the door. And I don't think that does anything. They've never cried when I've left the room like that. They're just like, all right, he's done. He gave me some time. Because also part of it, they're so tired. They're like, when they're overtired, they're asking crazy questions that, which like, as to Evan's point, is very important. it's a good time for connection, but it's also like your brain is just like, it's like when you like shut down like an old computer and you see all the files flipping through as it's closing out. That's what their brain is doing. They're just like
they're just grabbing them up,
throwing everything at you.
Opening a couple before they check out. I mean, that's the thing, right? That one of the biggest things we can do as parents is listen to our kids.
Yeah.
That's like one of the biggest things you can do is just
For
listen
sure.
to them.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean after I've had my coffee and I'm ready for you to come and talk to me now, and you have a 5-minute window. It's when you really need them, when they really need you to listen to them is when it's most important. And sometimes it's at 10 o'clock at night and they're not going to bed, and so it's give and take. A lot of it's so much of it's give and take.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's also a cultural thing. My husband's from Dominican Republic. As you can imagine, his approach is a little bit different than mine. And we have come together and into a place of my side. But he was, he was raised in a much more, how would I describe it? No, that's not the good word. Authoritative environment,
Okay.
Authoritative parenting,
a little bit more of the physical bam bam on the butt or leg, and that's totally fine. And if that's, and some of the stuff we get away with here, but he does not do that with our children, of course. But it is a cultural thing as well. But what I wanted to ask you about was when you're creating your content and you're putting it out there, and this is obviously your experience and perspective. Do you mind sharing what your wives think about it? Do they like it? Are they fans? Are they impressed with what you're creating? Or are they kind of like, are you kind of disappointed by the reaction and lack of like enthusiasm for it?
No. A lot of times we will get inspiration from our wives on certain
cool.
ideas. Definitely run. My wife is also a content creator.
Okay.
Who does parenting content as well. At Annie Laferriere is her name.
Okay.
But we run that stuff by, not run everything by her, but always just like, they're definitely somebody like, can you check this out? Is this working for you? Because like the cool thing about creating your own content is you make it the way you want to make it.
Mm-hmm.
The bad thing about it is you're the only eyes on it. And sometimes that can be a bad thing where it's just like, wow, that joke didn't land with anyone, because sometimes we'll have a video that does well on Instagram, does bad on TikTok, and we're like, oh, okay, that's interesting and weird. You have a video that does bad on, Instagram and TikTok. You're like, maybe that was a fluke, and then you repost it 3 months later and it does bad again. You go, or it's not good.
No one really liked it.
So we definitely, springboard off of our spouses for a couple ideas or thoughts on something we've already created. And to that, we also will change things around, which they understand and appreciate. So like my daughter is the oldest of my children, and I have a younger son. So a lot of times I'll switch it around and have the son be the oldest and the daughter, just to kind of protect the kids if they ever came across this content.
Right.
And they're like, we don't, like Evan said, we don't really make fun of our kids in the videos. It's more about the parenting experience. But even if they ever felt that way, sometimes we do like talk about how annoying it is or whatever. We switch it all up. So when they watch it, it's just like, this is all fiction. This is heightened,
Yes.
Well, taking certain aspects of it, of course, otherwise there would be no relatability. But no, we're not attacking you personally for something you specifically did. That's the stuff we're going to avoid. If my daughter did something one night that's really annoying, I'm not making a video tomorrow about it.
Right.
And that's when my wife wouldn't appreciate my content if I did that.
Yeah, I think, and to that, all that to say, like they are happy with our content. They love that we do what we do. They agree, or they say it's important that we talk about being dads, the dad experience, right? Because there's just not enough of us doing that, especially in dad circles. Dads don't talk about that. Generally, they don't talk about their experience of being dads, being vulnerable as being dads. And so we try to kind of nudge the idea a little bit further along, like it's okay to talk about this, and you can also be funny while you're talking about it. So it's not so like such a scary subject matter to tackle.
Yeah.
But same, I really respect my wife's overall like balanced perspective on things. She has such a good perspective and is able to think things through so clearly often that if I'm, it's one thing to bounce stuff off each other like Kevin and I, when it's like, we can write jokes all day long. But sometimes if I'm trying to say something sometimes I'll just say something like, I'm kind of trying to credit the moms here with the intention of this joke. And so I'll have my wife read it and she's like, that's not how that's coming off. it's coming off like this.
Okay.
And I'll be, okay, yeah, that's not my intention. But now that you explain it, like I can see how that could not come off that way. And so then she'll help me like reword something or whatever. So in many ways, we lean on them for for inspiration and for help. So
Very cool. Very cool. I wanted to ask you about, I know that you talk about a lot of different challenges and different experiences, but what would you say is the toughest part of parenting, each of you, if you could pick one and one that you feel you've mastered?
Mastered.
And when I say mastered, I mean, you're really proud of what you've accomplished in that space.
Sure.
You can tell I'm in PR.
Yeah.
The thing to struggle with most in parenting, I think, is just like maybe this is just everyone's answer. When you're worn down, letting that dictate how you respond to situations. I think something.
Yeah, you do that a lot.
I do that. Yeah, Evan walks in on usually a tornado. Should we not record tonight? No, it was definitely more of a problem when they were toddlers, I will say. But it's like when you just get so frustrated with them, you're so annoyed with them, and then you take a break after it's been going on for way too long, and then you come back gentler and get down on their level, ask them if they need a hug, and then suddenly everything's working perfectly, which is like more annoying because you're like, oh, come on. And then when you do it, like when it happens the next time, you're like, how am I not learning this lesson? And it's just because parenting is, and especially for stay-at-home parents, but in any parent really, it's endless. I mean, parenting is nonstop. There's no breaks. I mean, kids could be in bed and then they could come out at any point in the night being like, I barfed on myself. And you're just like, okay, like it never ends. It is a job that is relentless.
You're clocked in 24/7.
So like, it's easy to get frustrated with certain things like this, things not working. And I guess, the thing I would say I struggle with the most, and like I said, it was definitely more of a thing when they were toddlers, but is like that letting your frustrations get the best of you when you know deep down this isn't gonna work the way you want. And if it does work, you're gonna feel worse.
Yeah.
If it does work, like raising your voice or whatever, and they do listen, you're like, now everyone's sad.
No, I get that.
Mood.
I never yell, and if I do, oh my goodness, my children are upset, and then the guilt is massive. So.
Yeah. Oh yeah. When you raise your voice and then the little wells in their eyes fill up and you go, oh, you got to fix this immediately.
Yeah. Yeah. That is total crisis mode.
Yeah.
That's a big one. You said that could be everyone's answer. That's definitely part of one of my answers, I think, but I'll switch mine into, I don't want to say time management because it's not like I have no ability to time manage. But what I mean by that is like, I often find myself thinking, I don't know how I'm supposed to have time every day to accomplish all the things that I'm trying to accomplish in a day.
Yeah.
And like, give you an example right now. I bought paint to paint the bathroom and a vanity to change out the vanity in the bathroom that we share with the kids. And that was like 2.5 months ago.
Oh, I thought you said that was today. Okay.
No.
2.5 months.
I like just started the project of taping it off and painting the edge like 2 days ago because it's just at the bottom of their priority list of things that need to happen all the time, every day. And even when you think, I think maybe I could start that on Saturday, then the play date happens. And I've got, okay, oh, that's right. You do have a haircut. That's right. I'm sorry. Yes. Okay. You take the car to the hair. I'll take the play date. Saturday's over. Like how time just disappears constantly. And I don't have the ability to think more than like 3 or 4 days ahead, maybe.
Yeah.
And I wish I was much better at that. I find that a constant challenge that I feel like it's like time management, more so like project management, just wanting the things that I want to get done all the time. I want them to be done efficiently and do it now and it's over and we can move on to the next thing. Mr. Thrill a Minute. That's the thing that I feel like, man, I feel like I do not have a grip on this and I don't know how I can. It just feels like the days get shorter and shorter and shorter.
They do, but you know what? I feel as though it's not completely our fault as parents because, for example, the schools have a lot of expectations. Like it's choir, it's presentation. Come watch the hip hop performance, which I loved this year, but or the recorder. Oh, please no. There's something always, and I want to be involved, but do they expect that we're just kind of sitting and waiting for the next daytime activity, which I enjoy, but there's a lot of expectations for us to be involved 24/7. So I get that the time piece.
Yeah,
it makes sense.
Absolutely.
Advice to parents who feel like they're going crazy. I think that we all feel that way. I feel that way a lot of the time, I must be honest. And I don't know, any words of encouragement just from the fact that you clearly can relate to a lot of parents. It's tough gig.
It is a tough gig. I guess a words of encouragement I always like to say is you're doing a better job than you think you are. I think it's easy to always, and probably a real big part of why the press conferences are popular is because we're always focused on the flaws. And I know it's like this athletes, even when the professional athletes have a big win, they're like, what do you think about the win today? And they're like, well, there's a lot of missed opportunities. And I know that's like, the performer in them saying that stuff, but I think we do that a lot as parents, where we will see the failures that we did today and not focus on all of the wins, because maybe the misses that we had were, maybe it seemed like a big miss because it got a big reaction or whatever. But I always think you're definitely doing a better job than you think. Your kids still love you very much. They always will. And they think the world of you, even if you don't.
Yeah. Yeah, well said. Laugh at your mistakes because you're going to make them.
It is fun.
There is no such thing as perfect parenting or a well-rehearsed family that has no issues, or however you want to describe it. So laugh at your mistakes and be also willing to, just make sure that you pay attention to your mistakes so that you try to learn from it. That's the way you can get better every day. It's like, I got to practice what I preach to my children. Failure is important because that's when you can really learn something about yourself. I also need to make sure that I do that on a daily basis. When I feel like I've failed at something, or I made a mistake, or, if I need to apologize to my kids because I made a mistake, that behavior resonates more than a one-off moment, with them. Constant behavior, consistent behavior with your children is what really makes a difference. So laugh at your mistakes, move on. It's not a big deal.
Well, I know that the bathroom is going to be completed and it's going to look great. It might not happen next week, but it's going to happen. It's going to be wonderful. So I'm going to encourage you on that. See, you're laughing at a mistake. There you go.
Yeah.
You're gonna do right. I always end. I'd love to keep you on. I have a million things to ask you, but time is of essence, and we all have little ones and work. I end every conversation with asking guests about their favorite nonprofit. So I don't know if you each have one that you want to share that you'd like people to know about.
Yeah, the big one was No Kid Hungry, which got very involved in California too, especially during the pandemic. They learned pretty quickly that how dependent so many families are on public school lunches and the offerings that they have there. And during the pandemic, when everybody was home, those opportunities weren't available to so many families that really, really relied on those meals. So instead of, backpedaling and sorry, it's tough is what we got to do, they actually stepped up, and No Kid Hungry offers breakfast, lunch, and dinner throughout the pandemic. And now for LAUSD public schools, it used to be a thing if you were a Title I, which is a school that 90% are below the poverty line. Everyone could get breakfast, lunch, and dinner in those schools. But then they changed it, and they were like, it doesn't matter what school you go to, where if you are hungry, we will feed you. And they do that at every school. So No Kid Hungry is, they do a lot of other stuff as well, but that was when we learned of them. And they're a pretty incredible nonprofit.
Okay. I'll keep it the same. Yeah, that's the one that we've supported over the last couple of years that we just feel passionate about. And I mean, no children should feel, they don't know where their next meal is coming from. And it builds a sense of community in the kids, even just offering something like that in the schools. My son, most days, wants to eat breakfast and lunch at school. And when I was a kid, you definitely knew the kids that just got like the peanut butter sandwich and the milk because their parents didn't send them to school with lunches or probably couldn't afford it, or whatever. And it was like they were definitely singled out, and I'm sure thought about it every day. And now I know my son, just, they all, whether or not they brought their lunch or they take the school lunch or they go get the school breakfast or whatever, they all sit around the table and laugh. And that's not part of the conversation in any way.
That's awesome.
And so I think that's, No Kid Hungry is we're big supporters of.
Fantastic. I'll link to that below the podcast episode when it's live.
Thank you.
Thanks for sharing that. Thank you so much for spending time with me and my Canadian podcast audience. I really appreciate it. Yeah, you guys are doing some amazing work. What's next? Any ideas? I mean, are we going sitcom? Are we going film?
We would love to go sitcom.
Yeah, we would love to go sitcom. We think that this, I think our take or our kind of experience that we offer through our content could be at a much larger platform. So
For sure.
we're always looking for ways to expand what we're offering to people, what our content is, while still remaining true to what our how we put things through our filter, our experiences as dads. And so we also are going on a little mini sort of tour. We're doing some live shows this
when is this going up, do you think?
This is going up next week.
Great.
Next week. Yeah.
So we are going on tour. We are going to Chicago on August 5th, St. Louis on August 6th, and Nashville on August 7th. So there will be a link in our bio for tickets for that if anybody wants to go. And if and when those shows sell out, then we will expand to a larger tour, hopefully to Canada.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I would love to go to Canada.
Listen, British Columbia has a huge digital presence. Massive. I'll send you some data.
We would love to. This will just be mostly about us trying to get up. That's how we met. We met doing sketch comedy, before we had kids. And we did that for years and just loved every second of it, putting up live shows. And we thought, here we are putting all this content online, and we see other people doing live shows, and we're like, well, why aren't we doing that? We should definitely do that. So we're gonna start with 3 shows, take our notes, move on, and expand it from there. We're really excited.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, promise me if you come to Vancouver, you'll let me know. We'll meet for an apple juice box or whatever you feel like having.
Sure,
Grape, fruit punch.
Yeah.
And would love that. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. This is Kevin and Evan, Dumb Dads podcast, and the Dumb Dads on social media. Absolutely must check out their podcasting content. Hilarious, relatable, and more in-depth than I ever imagined. These are very, very hands-on, innovative dads and men. Thank you so much for being here, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Be kind and truly connect.
You are listening to Rachel Thexton Connects.